Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It has been like 3 months since I released a video, and really it's because I haven't been doing anything with the car. Um, Went into the shop for some fueling mods, and really only just got it back maybe two or 3 weeks ago. I plan on making a video kind of that goes over kind of all the updates that's happened with the car in the last couple months. But today, I want to ease back into it with a wheel stud video. So, as you guys may know, the car already has ARP wheel studs. However, the studs are of the stock length, which I think is like, I don't know, 52 or 42 millimeters, something like that. And I was at a tech inspection, and the inspector brought up a good point. So he was looking at my Titan 7 wheels, and he goes, well, you know, those are pretty thick, and you may or may not have enough lug engagement onto the threads. And you know, he passed me, but he told me to go check it when I got home. And so general rule of thumb is that you want 1.5 times engagement of threads to the diameter. So I think this is a 12 millimeter diameter stud, and the thread pitch is, I think, 1.25 or 1.5. So what that means is for every full turn of your lug nut, you're moving or you're engaging 1.25 or 1.5 millimeters of thread. So at 1.5 times your diameter of your stud, which I think is 12, someone double check me on that, that means you want 18 millimeters of engagement. And that comes out to somewhere around like 8. Is it 8? I don't know. Someone do the math on that. 8 times 1.5, that's 12. No, so you want a lot more than that. So I don't know. We'll put the math up on the screen or something like that. I'm terrible at it. Suffice to say, there wasn't enough. And it's not that there wasn't any at all. I had about 7 full turns, but I was about a turn or turn and a half short. And so could you technically get away with that? Probably, right? But I'm not gonna roll the dice on that one. Wheel studs, in the grand scheme of things, are relatively cheap, and the work is relatively easy, so I'm going to go ahead and just replace them with longer ones. Originally, I was avoiding that because it's a lot harder to put in longer wheel studs on these cars, and depending on what's going on, you may need to remove the hub, or you may need to remove some parking brake hardware. And so I was trying to shortcut myself, and came around and bite me in the butt. So I'm just going to record doing these in the rear of the car, because I think that's where most of the complicated stuff is going to come up, and I'll record that. If you do have questions about the front, there's another video somewhere on the channel that covers installing the shorter wheel studs, and you know, I recommend that you look for that, or maybe I'll link it in the description. So I am going to go get all the tools that I need, and then we'll start working on the rear of the car. All right, so first thing I got to do is get everything off. So remove clips. Oh shoot. All right, brake pads are out. There's 2 bolts on the back that connect the caliper to the hub. So let me think here. I'm looking at it and I want to loosen it. Okay guys, so I had to stop here real quick just to make sure I was taking off the caliper correctly. That's how long it's been since I've wrenched on a car, and trying to ease back into it here. So yeah, there's 2 bolts back here that you have to remove to take the caliper off. And I just wanted to make sure I was actually turning the bolt the right way, because I know these Brembos, you know, if you over torque them, you can booger the threads. And yeah, I just had to make sure that I wasn't doing something stupid. Okay, so with that, e-brake's down, should be able to just wiggle off the rotor. Okay, so I think I need to remove the brake shoes, and that might be just removing all these springs. And then I need to press out the old studs, which I will use a tie rod, kind of a tie rod removal tool. I don't like hammering, although, you know, you see a bunch of people hammering and it obviously works. I don't know. I'm just going to use the tie rod removal tool. You're more, I guess it's closer to like pressing it out like you would on a press versus hitting it with a hammer. So we're going to quickly remove the brake shoes, press these out, and then we'll figure out how to loosen up the hub here. All right, so the shoes are removed, and there's a series of springs that you have to unclip, and I think the position of the springs matter. So which spring you took from where is important to remember, because I don't think they're interchangeable. There's 3 up here, and then there's one really long one on the bottom. And I won't lie, and then there's like these 2 clips that you push in on either side of the shoe, and then you rotate this 90 degrees. Now, I won't lie, when I was doing that, as I got to the clips, everything sort of fell apart. And this kind of fell out, which may or may not happen to you. This is a brake shoe adjuster as well. Allows you to adjust the parking brake. I know a lot of people do it on the parking brake in the car, but there is an adjustment on the shoes. And then there's also this plate that sits on the top here, and I'm not sure what it does. What I'm getting at is that this sort of fell apart. Gonna have to go into the manual to figure out how to put it back together. But I'm not gonna let that slow me down right now. I'm just gonna go ahead and power forward and use this tie rod removal tool to push out the studs. So I'm gonna position the fork side, or the fork of the tool, on the back side of the hub, and then the thumb of the tool onto the stud, and then just tighten it and push this out. So I'm going to do all 5, and then we'll get to how we can loosen the hub so that we can get the extended studs in. Okay, so as you can see here, these studs were removed. Pretty straightforward. Doesn't take too long, maybe 5 minutes. You might find that as you work your way around the hub and you take out different studs, that some studs it might be easier to reorient the studs in a different direction. Instead of trying to turn it here, which can get more difficult as you start to run out of studs, go to the other side of the car and try turning the wheel on the other side of the car, or at least grabbing the disc and turning the disc. I know it's an open diff for most WRXs. On STI it's not, so but I think if you turn that one wheel, it should turn this side, maybe. But yeah, if that's the case, or if you are having trouble kind of orienting the studs so you can get a tool onto them, just try turning one of the wheels and it should turn. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is remove the ABS sensor. Sensor's on the top here behind the dust plate or dust shield. 10mm bolt, and then I think the sensor just comes out here. Tuck that away over here. And then I have to remove 4 bolts, or loosen 4 bolts on the back of the hub. So you can see one of the bolts right here. And if you reach around and dig around where the axle goes into the hub, you'll find like a recessed area, and there's 4 bolts. I'd love to show you on camera, but the car's not that high off the ground, and chances are you're not going to be able to see anything anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen these bolts right now. Positioning of your tool might be difficult because of all the suspension components. So you may need a deep socket, or maybe some extensions and kind of like swivel joints. But I'm going to go ahead and do this off camera, and then kind of show you with how it looks with the bolts removed. Okay, so I've got the 4 bolts on the back of the hub pulled off, and you can kind of see the hub hanging down here. So this back plate here, it's going to come loose, and then you can kind of hold the back plate in place and pull on the hub a little bit, and it'll kind of slide out. Don't pull too much. You probably don't want to pull your axle out, but pull enough so that you can get these studs in. So here we got, that one's pretty easy. I think I'm going to take a lug nut and just hold it on here, because I think what I want to do is not pull them in with the hub loose. I want to reinstall the hub, and then I'll pull on these studs to seat them. So same thing here. You may find that some of these studs, like for example this one, there's no way I'm going to get this in, or maybe I might here if I wiggle enough. Oh yeah, okay. But if you can't, or there's some type of space constraint, again, run to the other side of the car, grab the disc on the outside, and turn it so that this one spins. Yeah, okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish doing this, and then we'll reinstall the hub, or the wheel bearing actually, to the hub, torque that down, and then begin reassembly of the brake pads, or the brake shoes. Okay, so let's see, I've got the hub back on, or the wheel bearing back on the hub. You can see here but the 4 bolts. Now I've got to torque them down to spec, and I think it's 47.9 foot-pounds, or pound-foots, or I don't know. So I'm going to torque them down here, and then after that we can get to drawing these studs in. So let's see here. Might be a little challenging trying to get my torque wrench in here. But we'll see. Ford set. What is that? 45, 48. Cool. So I'll go ahead and do the rest of them. You guys probably don't need to see that. And then we'll draw these bad boys in, which should be pretty straightforward, and then reinstall the pads. All right, so I've got 4 out of the 5 studs installed, and kind of go over this process super quick with you guys. So I've got my stud installation kit that I got from the last time I did this. I'll link it in the description. I mean, you could probably do it with like a lug nut, to be honest. All you're really doing is drawing the stud in against the hub. But this is nice. It's quick, it's fast, and as you can see, it doesn't bottom out because of the long, the extended stud. And I've got this socket here, which makes it a lot easier than the last time we did it with a crescent wrench. This is a 1/1/18 inch, which fits this nut. So I've got the car in first gear. There we go. And the studs are installed. So now to figure out how to put this rear e-brake brake shoe system back together. Let me go read the service manual here, try to understand what the hell is going on, and then put it back together and kind of show you what's going on. Okay, so everything's back together, and it's really not that complicated. So when we disassembled it, we started from the top. We removed these two springs first, then this third one over here, and then there's a fourth one on the bottom. Then you press these two clips on either side and rotate this pin 90 degrees so you can slide it out. Installation is just the reverse of that. So you position one shoe and put this clip on, right? Then you bring the other shoe in and you put that clip on. Remember to rotate this pin 90 degrees now so you're locking the shoe in. Put the bottom spring on, which is pretty straightforward. Make sure that that brake shoe adjuster, it's a two-piece part and one side is smaller than the other. The bigger portion is supposed to face the back of the car if you're working on the passenger side, and I think on the driver's side it's supposed to face the front of the car. So the manual specifically points that out, and just make sure that you're doing it on you have it pointed in the correct direction on the correct side of the car. I think that's just so when someone comes in here to adjust it, that they're turning that adjuster in the right direction, or at least in the direction they expect to tighten the shoes and loosen the shoes. That top plate that I was saying, I'm not entirely sure what that's for. There's two notches on either side on each of the brake shoes that those notches, that it slips into those notches. So what I did was I installed after I had the left shoe on or the right shoe on, I put the spring on and pulled on it to get it hooked on to this kind of center portion right here. And when I pulled on it, the shoe snapped over. So be careful, and definitely wear goggles or something to protect your eyes. And then I slipped the plate into the notch on the shoe. Then I installed the spring on the left shoe and kind of used like a flathead, not to get my fingers in here, but used a flathead to hold the plate up, and then pulled on the spring again, and that snapped the shoe over in this direction. And I just tried to support this center plate so that when it snapped over, it snapped over and grabbed the plate into its notch. So you may have to try that a couple times so that you get that plate in between the two notches on the shoe. If there's a better way to do it, please let me know. Also, the shoe position matters. So there's a hole you see for this third spring on the plate. So make sure that you're installing this plate in the correct direction. You sort of can't mess it up, but just take a bunch of pictures before you start. That way you know what it looks like on that specific side. This spring, however, is a royal pain in the butt. This one took me half an hour to get in. And what I ended up doing was using a punch to kind of hold and guide the spring to where it needs to be. And then I used a flathead and pushed the spring back. And so guide the spring with the punch and then pushed it back. And eventually it caught onto the notch. And then I went under and very carefully pushed the spring up. I couldn't do it with needle nose. it just every time you would grab it and try to push it in that direction, the angles weren't right and the spring would twist, and now you don't have it so that the hook can go into the hole. If anyone knows a better way of doing this, let me know, because this was a real pain in the butt, like a real pain in the butt. And I anticipate people are going to have problems with this one. And I think that's it. In this situation, now you're just going to reinstall the rotor here, and then reinstall the brake caliper, reinstall the brake pads, and all the brake pad hardware. I'll go ahead and do that here. I don't think you guys really need to watch me do this. I don't think. You may want to know what this torque spec is for the caliper to the hub. So let me go ahead and reinstall everything, and then I'll come back and tell you what that spec is going to be. Okay, so everything's back on, pads are installed, and everything's been tested, and it works. So the final two things to note here is make sure you reinstall your ABS sensor here at the top. I don't know if you can see where my hand is. That's 5.5 foot-pounds. And the caliper, because this is like an STI caliper, the torque spec is going to be 48 foot-pounds or 47.9 foot-pounds. If you do not have an STI caliper and you have a WRX and your caliper is not a Brembo, or it doesn't look like a Brembo, and it's like a slider pin caliper, that is not your torque spec. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's the same, but please do not use 47.9 if you don't have this type of caliper, because the bolt threads, it passes through the hub and threads into the caliper, and so for this caliper's material, that's the torque that it can take. If you've got a different caliper, it could be completely different. So just double check. And really, that's it. Everything's done. I'm gonna go ahead and hurry up and do the rest of the car, because filming and working on cars tends to take a really long time. But that'll be it for this video. I hope some of you guys find it helpful. And we'll be pretty busy here in the next couple months, so there should be some stuff coming out that you may or may not find interesting. As always, thank you very much for watching, guys. If you have questions, concerns, don't hesitate to post them in the comment section, and we'll see you at the next video. Take care. Bye.